everyone. I am Drew Duncan, and this is the Sing 57 podcast. A couple of things to get into. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson. Should he be getting all the blame? We're going to be talking about the Draymond Green situation that's happening. In addition, we're going to be talking a little college football. Who are the good teams? Do we even really know right now? All right, let's get into it. Russell Wilson, I just really don't understand why everybody is solely blaming Russ for what is going on in Denver right now. Now, look, I want to make something very clear here. That I get it. The quarterback is a top spot, right? If the team is winning, even if the QB is mid, i.e. Cooper Rush, well, then people are going to start giving the quarterback credit and create controversies, et cetera, like what we're seeing with the Dallas Cowboys, right? The team could be mid or not playing good, but if the QB is playing great, and Lamar Jackson, then he is going to get the blame for whatever reason. What is going on here is, to me, a lot of people just don't know football. Now, I understand. In the games that we have seen Denver play, they've been low-scoring games. They've been boring to watch for the most part. Probably the most entertaining one that we got was obviously the opening Monday night game with Denver and Seattle for obvious reasons. Russ going back to Seattle, first game of the year, first game with Denver, and it's right back in his own spot, right? His stomping ground where he helped basically bring up that football team to the level that they were. Regardless of what anybody want to say, that is exactly what was going on. We know it. Everybody knows it. Yes, Russ had, a great defense with Sherman and all those guys. I get it. I think beast mode slightly overrated. He would have a really good game, then a really mid game, then a really good game, then a below mid game. I'm not really going to get into that. What I am talking about right now is how the Denver Broncos are offensively. And I have been screaming at the top of my lungs that it is the offensive line. You've got an offensive line that has more false starts than any football team right now in the NFL. They couldn't block a D2 football team. You've got running backs that are constantly having to create when they get the ball in their hands. You've got teams that are just blitzing and bull rushing because they know that Denver's offensive line is not worth it. They know that they're not going to be able to compete. And so they know Denver's going to have a hard time throwing the football deep. Why do you think Denver is running all the screenplays that they do? You've got poor coaching decisions. They're going to the well one too many times with screenplays, trying to nullify those blitz packages. I get it. They're trying to help out that offensive line a little bit, make life easier for them. But let's be honest, the play calling has been bad. And I understand that people say, well, you should have ran the ball. Yeah, Russ can audible, but it was the coach's play call on 4th and 1 in overtime against the Colts. Do you understand that? Russ didn't do that. It wasn't Russ's play call in the Super Bowl. That was Pete Carroll's decision. And let's not forget, there were rumors and questions about whether or not Pete Carroll knew how to coach a $100 million quarterback when they first gave Russell Wilson his money. There is a lot more than what is going on. Denver just runs the ball on first down, right? They get a screenplay or a draw play on second down. Then they're looking at 3rd and long. It's the same routine every single drive. And they expect Russ to constantly make a play. And to Denver Broncos fans who are old enough to remember, it should sound familiar, right? Wasn't that the gripe with Dan Reeves when he had John Elway? Hey, Elway, let's run the ball for 3 quarters. We're not playing so good. Can you save our asses in the 4th? Hey, it's 3rd and long, Elway. Can we get you to make a play, please? Elway didn't have a great offensive line. Those Super Bowls that he lost, people forget that a lot of that was the same situation. Dan Reeves would come right out of the gate, do something explosive, but then he would run the ball forever again. They got up 10-0 against Washington, and they decided to just run the football. Yes, give Doug Williams credit. Absolutely. He came back in that game hurt. He inspired that football team, and they scored, 35 points or something like that in the second quarter and just decimated the Broncos. But let's also look at that game against the New York Giants in the first Super Bowl that they lost. 2 missed field goals in the first half by Rich Karlis on 4th and 1 when New York went for it around midfield instead of Denver calling a timeout and forcing them to go ahead and punt the football. He just let the play ride. Denver was ill-prepared coaching wise. And we are seeing that with Hackett right now. It's literally the same scenario all over again. I just don't think that it's all on Russ. Yes, Russell Wilson missed a wide open Hamler. Yes, Russell made a very bad throw. Yes, Russ has got a couple of INTs, and he should have had a few more when he played against Seattle. But let's not forget that he also threw for over 300 yards in that football game. With an offensive line that constantly was getting false starts. We're talking 1st and 10, now it's 1st and 15. Let's not forget about the fumbles that happened inside the red zone twice in that football game. You know, Russ talked about it, and I've been screaming it. Denver gets to the red zone. They just can't finish drives. And they've had blocked field goals, missed field goals, blocked PATs, missed PATs. The special teams haven't been good, but I suppose that's Russell Wilson too, right? Obviously, the good part about the Denver Broncos has been the defense. But Denver's defense has been the staple of that ball club now for just about a decade. They've been the saving grace. During their Super Bowl run with the Sheriff Peyton Manning, when he played horrible football that season, Aqib Talib came out and said the defense is getting tired of carrying the offense. It's been like that now for a very long time in Denver. And I, like so many others, presumed, okay, the defenses are going to back up a little bit, knowing that Russ has the capability to throw the ball deep. But I think once they discovered that Denver's offensive line is absolutely hot garbage and the play calling is as basic as high school football, then teams were just simply not afraid. And the Seattle Seahawks defense exposed that in the first game of the season. Everybody had eyes on that football game. Every coach, every player, every athlete, every former athlete, everybody had their eyes on that football game, and they immediately found the secret to success when dealing with the Denver Broncos. You have to score maybe 13 points, and you'll probably win the football game because of that basic play calling, that horrendous offensive line. The run game isn't there. Javonte Williams got hurt, so then that's been a problem for Denver. You've got Melvin Gordon fumbling the football like crazy. To squarely put it on Russ, who I'm not saying is without blame, is just ridiculous. I mean, we've got people going after his personal life now. Why? For what? Now you're trying to figure out, well, it's been since he's dated Sierra, and, you know, when he was on the red carpet, everybody else, hey, man, we'll talk to you. No, not Russ. He was too good to talk to us. Look, man, I've been a journalist for a long time, okay? I've got awards and research and personality and television and everything else. And I'm going to explain something to you right now. Not everybody's going to want to talk to you. I had a very similar experience when I was at the spring football game covering for KU when I worked for an ESPN affiliate. They didn't want to give me interviews. They wanted to focus on the true local people. It is what it is. Was it a bad experience? Did I think to myself, hey, you've won 3 games in 3 years. Why are you doing this? You want to build? I guess you got to have an ego. It is what it is. So the only interview I got was Ben Heaney. I did meet Chris Harris Jr. In an elevator. Didn't get a chance to interview him, but I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes people just don't want to talk to the media for whatever reason. And Chris Harris Jr. really didn't want to talk to anybody in the media there. Hell, he didn't even want to sign autographs. Of course, and again, the way people were treating him, you know, whistling at him from all the way down. Hey, my kid's a big fan. Really? Your kid looks 3. All right, come on. The point of what I'm saying is these are very similar situations right now in Denver. From Elway to the Sheriff. And don't talk to me about Peyton Manning. Oh, Peyton set all those records. You don't know what you're talking about. Go look at that last season. Peyton Manning was so horrendous the year that Denver won the Super Bowl that while he rode the pine injured for 4 weeks, he still led the league in interceptions. And he didn't even throw for 130 yards in the Super Bowl. And if I remember correctly, turned the ball over 3 times. That defense saved the day, plus poor play calling by the Carolina Panthers. Those deep end routes against that front line, come on. Same thing in Denver. Those deep end routes, look, Denver's going to have to start running some quick slant plays. They're going to have to start running some quick out plays. Okay, they're going to have to get away from the screen game, the repetitive play calling, mix it up, some quick wheel routes, some ways to get, receivers open on quick crossing routes, drag routes. And then that'll probably help open it up a little bit more because at least you'll be having different play calling. And for freaking crying out loud, I'm trying not to cuss, don't run the damn ball on first down every single time. And can we stop with the false starts? If I'm the coach of that football team, I am going to my offensive line and I am telling them, all of you are going to get benched if this doesn't stop. Seriously. We're not watching an NFL level football team in any sense that there is. The oldest adage in the book is you got to give the quarterback 3 seconds to throw the football. When Russell goes to do play action, and by the time he turns around, there's already a man in his face. What is he supposed to do? It's just like all these Lamar Jackson haters. I'm so sick of it. I've been sick of it. We're seeing the cannon now. The coach is finally letting him throw the ball deep. I've been saying for years, he could throw it deep. It's just not the play call. Denver needs to get away from this basic ass style of football. That's the issue. All right, moving on. Draymond Green. Look, I don't really feel that Draymond should apologize. For anybody who saw the video of that cross that he threw, look, I understand that we have a difficult time dealing with violence outside of situations that we think are supposed to be not violent, right? i.e. MMA, boxing, etc. I get all that. I have been harsh on fans for starting nonsense with players, athletes of any type. I get tired of it. But these are two grown men. In whatever situation was going on, Jordan Poole definitely pushed Draymond Green. And the fact that there has been a lack of discipline, which in the NBA we know comes very swift, especially for Draymond Green, the fact that there has been little discipline to this point, that kind of tells me all I need to know about the situation. Now, that is not to say that something else is going to happen along the way. But for the moment, nothing has. And look, tempers flare. Okay, this is not a Michael Jordan situation. It's not what I'm seeing. All right, so let's just get that out of the way. Another old adage is don't start none, won't be none. Maybe there's something I missed. I don't know, but Jordan Poole pushes him. Draymond was reactionary in that situation. Was it the correct response? Hey, look, man, that's for each individual to decide. But for anybody to sit here and say that Draymond is 100% responsible for what happened, to me, from what I've seen in that footage, it's just not the case. They were at each other's throats. They were verbally jabbing. They got into it. Jordan pushed him, and Draymond lit him up. That's just about all there is to it. And I can appreciate Draymond taking responsibility, being a man and just saying, hey, look, man, that's on me, bro. For whatever reason, whether it's, I shouldn't have reacted that way or whatever he's got going on that he is thinking. I completely understand, what he's doing. And hey, man, props to Draymond for just owning it. But I'm going to tell you something right now. Lifelong Knicks fan here. I would definitely take Draymond on my basketball team. He's an enforcer. Yeah, sure. He plays the game a little dirty, but you know what? So did the Pistons. So did the Knicks back in the day. So did the Boston Celtics. Come on. We constantly talk about how we miss those days. We get a player that reflects those days, and then we want to say, oh, well, Draymond's being an asshole. He's just violent. That's just who Draymond is. He's a douche, yada, yada, yada. No, that's not the case here. Decide what you're looking for is what I'm saying. Okay? We talk about Kareem and, how he just lit up dude in a basketball game one time because Kareem got, a nice little gut check. So Kareem turned around and popped dude right in the middle of a basketball game. We glorify that, but then we tell Draymond Green, oh, shame on you. That's just not how it works to me. Okay, we're not going to do this picking and choosing who we want to admire in similar situations. It's just not going to happen. Poole pushed him. Draymond responded. He let him know. You're not going to get physical with me, bro. I've been telling people for the longest time that Draymond's about that life. I have literally seen that dude stare down LeBron, and I'm going to tell you what, LeBron didn't want to make eye contact. Draymond's about it. You understand what I'm talking about here? And you can hate me all you want to. You're glorifying violence. I can't believe. Who said I'm glorifying violence? Two grown men entered into a situation. One shoved, the other threw a punch, and then that was it. Okay, we're not talking about, mass situations here where a brawl broke out like what happened with McGregor and Habib and all that. We're not talking about major riots. We're not talking about any of those things. We're talking about two men in a practice that had beef, and then they squared it. That's all there is to it. And they both lived to see another day because there was no other violence other than that. Seriously. All right. College football. Do we know who the good teams are right now? Yeah, I'm not so sure. All right. You had Alabama struggle with Texas. I know Texas looked really good against OU, but come on, we've all seen that flop this year. So let's not. All right, 49-0. That's really impressive. Ewert is a hell of a quarterback, but he got hurt in that game. And the guy lost his job to him that was the starter the year before, came in and played decent football. And Texas had a chance to beat Alabama right out of the gate. Alabama looked okay last night. But again, do we know who the good teams really are? Right, watching UCLA and Utah after Utah got drummed by Florida the way that they did, and then UCLA struggled with them. I don't know. I mean, to this point, you could probably point to Georgia and Ohio State, but really when all is said and done, who of those two teams really even played? Auburn's not that good. Okay, let's get that out of the way. They're down to their third quarterback. They lost Bo Nix last year to Oregon, or this season, I should say, to Oregon. Do we really know who the true good teams are in college football this season? I tell you what, that 12-team thing cannot come quick enough. It just can't. I get the feeling that this year we could very well potentially see a 2-loss football team in the college football playoff. I think we need to prepare for that reality. TCU and KU had a hell of a football game, but KU hasn't played anybody that's up to snuff up until that moment. Now, Bean came in and played a hell of a football game, and KU really responded very well when TCU, I thought a couple of different times, really had full control of that football game. KU was very good at responding and bouncing back. But are they a top-tier level football team? Is TCU, for that matter? They've got a receiver in Johnston. Boy, did he play a hell of a football game. He really exposed that KU defense, and I guarantee you every scout in the NFL just noticed him. 14 catches, 200 and some yards. Just an incredible day for him. But are they going to be good enough to be able to stay undefeated and make it out of what I have called for years a very weak Big 12 conference? OU clearly out of it this year. Texas probably out of it this year, but they're 4-2 at the moment. Like I said, we could very well see a 2-loss football team. Now, I don't think it's going to be Texas by any stretch of the imagination. Oklahoma State, they struggled yesterday, right? Obviously, everybody's going to be looking at Oklahoma State and TCU this coming Saturday. That's going to be a pretty big football game where that game's probably going to end up deciding who the Big 12 champion will be. If they, whoever wins that game, as long as they stay undefeated, maybe one loss. Obviously, Oklahoma State's going to have to contend with KU, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I think the winner of that football game, especially if TCU wins, the winner of that football game is probably going to be the Big 12 champion. Baylor's not going to make it happen. TCU with a pretty legit defense. Even though Bean played the way he did in the second half, I think TCU probably still has the best defense in the Big 12. And defense is still a thing. Clemson, I think, is a very overrated football team. I don't see North Carolina State really being able to make a move. I am a huge Syracuse fan. I have been since the first time I saw Donovan McNabb play. I'm staring at my Syracuse orange helmet right now, my autographed Syracuse hat. I've got my Syracuse jersey in the closet, et cetera, et cetera. I've got Donovan McNabb playing cards. I love that university, and I have been a football fan of theirs for a very long time, and even though they are 5-0, I am a realist. They have not played anybody. Great. They beat Wagner 59-0. Whoop-de-doo. Struggled with Virginia mightily. And I remember very vividly, what was it, a 5-0, 5-1 Syracuse football team years ago when they played against Virginia Tech and Marcus Vick, and got annihilated. Okay, so as the year progresses, obviously more and more teams are going to get exposed. But right now, can we look and say we have a definitive number one football team in this country predicated upon what we have seen this season? Not what we saw last year, what we are seeing this year. I don't think so. I don't think we know who the real number one football team in college football is this year. And I think it could lead to potentially giving us an actual good playoff to watch this season. At least I hope so. I'm really sick of seeing blowouts. Over the years, we've seen Michigan State lose 38-0. We've seen Washington get manhandled. We've seen Notre Dame get rocked. We've seen OU blow a huge lead. Other than that, the other three times they were in the CFP, they got annihilated. We haven't seen very many close games. Obviously, the Alabama-Georgia, championship game a few years ago was a hell of a football game. But outside of that, you had Alabama up on Ohio State early. Ohio State ends up coming back and winning that game by, a couple of scores, double digits. You had Oregon and Ohio State. It was an okay game to watch, but in the end, Zeke Elliott and company, just too much. So we really haven't seen a lot of truly good football in terms of the CFP. We do notice that there is a gap with these teams, but I got to tell you, the NIL deals, I think, are really thinning the herd a lot quicker than we imagined. When they minimized it to 75 scholarships, it took years for that progression to happen. We started seeing teams like Boise State, Utah then, before they were in the Pac-12. Urban Meyer was their head football coach. They had Alex Smith, right? They were an undefeated football team. We saw runs by other teams that were really just unsuspecting, West Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact of what I'm saying is I think the NIL deals are really thinning out the herd very quickly. It's not just going to be a D1 thing anymore to go and play ball. And it's good for the players. I have said all along that these athletes deserve to get paid. I know that a lot of people get upset. It's just not traditional football and it's too much like the NFL now. And guys, they've been treating them like NFL players for years. I mean, goodness grief, did you not watch the TCU KU game? They had KU players in front of a green screen posing, doing interviews on national TV and radio all week. They've been doing that for years, man. Don't talk to me like these kids don't deserve everything that they get when they promote these universities. You don't think Peyton Manning, being an alum at Tennessee, doesn't help their cause? You don't say, well, yeah, obviously he's a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL. Wrong. People loved interviewing Peyton Manning, just a good old boy. We treat them like NFL players, but we don't want to pay them like NFL players. Well, that's just hypocritical. We expect more from our college athletes than we do anybody else, and I really don't understand it. We don't want them to work. Oh, you could go get a job. No, you can't. It's an NCAA violation. Well, he could do this and he could do that. And okay, look, man, when I was a sports journalist or studying mass communications to be a sports journalist with an emphasis on sports analysis, I was on scholarship. And while I was on that scholarship, I was allowed to go out and work as an intern and receive money for the things that I was doing at that radio station. And you mean to tell me that that's okay because I'm not an athlete? It's trickle-down economics, man. These guys are the reasons that there is sponsorship from Coca-Cola, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't really mean to get into all that. It's another story another time. But the point of what I'm saying is the NIL deals are thinning things out a lot quicker than I believe that any of us really foresaw. I don't think that any of us thought it would happen this rapidly. Now, I could be wrong. It could be still that it's fairly early in the year and Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State are finding their grooves. And just because none of those teams have really competed against anybody that ended up being worthwhile. Sure, at the beginning of the season, it looked like it, but that's because of the ranking system. A bunch of guys got together and decided that Oregon should come into the season without having played a football game in the top 10, top 15. Why? Isn't that the mistake that everybody keeps bashing Denver for with Russell Wilson? Dude didn't even play a preseason game, hadn't played one game of football as a Bronco yet in the regular season, and they offered him over $200 million and extended him out for 4 years. Isn't that the mistake that everybody is talking about in Denver right now? So why is it a pass in college football when we're ranking teams that have yet to do anything, that have yet to play anybody? College football sells itself, man. Oregon and Georgia and all these other football teams do not need to be ranked 1, 2, 3, and 4 to start the season. We'll figure it out later. Just right now, to me, there's not a definitive number one football team. If I had to pick, I'd probably go with Georgia. But again, we will see. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. This was the Sync 57 podcast. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves.